This episode will discuss themes of racism and violence of an explicit nature, which some parents may find distressing. Viewer discretion is advised. In this episode, we intend to deconstruct the representation of various races with a particular focus on the black race.
Racism is not a new phenomenon. Racism is an age-old phenomenon which raises its head amongst different people at different times.
How do we, as a contemporary society, view people of different races? What role does race play in Islamic history? And what race was the mother of the 12th Imam, Muhammad al-Mahdi, the awaited saviour of mankind? This is Inquisitor. So, what is racism? The racist card, so to speak, has been thrown around so much that the very definition of racism has become ambiguous. The Oxford Dictionary defines racism as the belief that all members of each race possess characteristics, abilities, or qualities specific to that race, especially so as to distinguish it as inferior or superior to any other race.
Racism within the popular discourse is also rooted in a prejudicial treatment of somebody based upon the colour of their skin.
One might argue that it's not racist to say particular people are better at playing particular roles due to their race. It's simply a fact of life that black people are better at sports and singing, or that white people are better leaders and thinkers, right? But actually, racism is exactly to think in that way, whether it's overt or discreet. Racism, in fact, is the belief or doctrine that inherent differences among the various human races determine cultural or individual achievement, usually involving the idea that one's own race is superior.
On the more academic level, we see that racism is said to be a prejudicial treatment of others based upon racial considerations. And here we can have scientific racism as well, where we see people who have a race other than ours as less than us, or as scientific racism has gone on to say that these individuals are actually not human beings, but they belong to another species, and the true representation of humanity is X racial grouping.
Are you talking about Darwinism?
Well, social Darwinism does have a role to play within racism. It was adopted by many racists within their discourse to justify the ill treatment of others.
The theory that there is a hierarchy of human species into races has affected international politics, economics, and social development across the globe. Social Darwinism is a false application of Darwin's ideas, such as adaptation and natural selection. Social Darwinism is a belief which became popular in England, Europe, and America in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Herbert Spencer, an English philosopher in the 19th century, was one of the most important social Darwinists. Social Darwinism does not believe in the principle of equality of all human beings. It states that some human beings are biologically superior to others, the strongest or fittest should survive and flourish in society, and the weak and unfit should be allowed to die. Eugenics is a more extreme form of social Darwinism, which is linked to the racist doctrines of Nazi Germany. The Englishman, Sir Francis Galton, coined the word eugenics for the study of human improvement by genetic means. Galton believed in the idea of planned human betterment through selective mating, a system of arranged marriages between men of distinction and women of wealth to produce a gifted race. He also believed that mental qualities, such as genius and talent, are inherited. So racism is not just something which uneducated people bear. The belief that some races are dominant to others is actually a phenomenon which is entwined within certain scientific spheres. However, these sciences are not grounded in fact in any way, and are in fact theories used to justify racial superiority. These so-called sciences are grounded in human egoism and arrogance. Islam teaches us that the only thing which makes one person superior to the other is their integrity, their efforts in doing good deeds, and their piety. The Holy Quran in chapter 49 verse 13 says, "O mankind, we have created you from male and female and made you into nations and tribes, that you may know one another. Verily the most honourable among you is the one who has the most taqwa." Furthermore, the first sin recorded in all history is a sin which can be likened to racism. This, of course, is the sin of Shaitan, the devil, who believed himself to be better than Adam purely because of the fact that he was of the race of jinn, while Adam was of the race of men. The Holy Quran tells us that Satan said, "I am better than he. You created me from fire, and you created him from clay." Ever since, the sin of arrogance or pride of one's own supposed superiority has been seen as one of the greatest sins, to the extent that a hadith relate that one who has even one iota of arrogance in their hearts shall not enter paradise. But how has racism survived in our communities today? And do we still harbour the tiniest shred of racism towards our fellow human beings?
When I talk about indiscreet racism towards me, I can see it manifesting itself in the way people expect me to be. And if I do not conform to that pre-conception of how I should be, then it seems that there is something wrong with me. Let me give an example. I'm hopeless at basketball. Okay, and I use the genre of sport knowingly because it said that within the racist narrative, all black people are good at sport. Okay, well, I'm hopeless at basketball, but I've played basketball with some individuals who have a different color tone than myself, and when they see my pathetic attempts at playing basketball, they fall back on a racist narrative. How comes you can't play basketball? But you're black. As if I meant to say, well, yes, you know what, I mean, I am black and therefore I should be able to play basketball.
You suddenly become a superhero. You're like, you're right, I am black.
Well,
and then you start dribbling like Michael Jordan.
Well, thank you for realising. Or, you know, black men can't jump as opposed to white men can't jump with regard to the film produced by Spike Lee.
What is it like for a black youth growing up in England?
When I was growing up in England as a teenager in the late 1980s, it was horrendous. And I'm sure many individuals would challenge me on this, and they would say, well, why was it horrendous? You know, Britain is a democracy, there's the rule of law. In England, there are racial discrimination laws in effect. Yes, these are all there. And I would say, with regards to race and racial discrimination and recourse to law, Britain does have one of the best, let's say, structures of redress with regards to racial discrimination. It's not perfect, and racial discrimination does show itself in a variety of social institutions. So let's take school as one. At school, we were called nigger, we were called coon, we were called monkeys. We were called wogs by the teachers.
Whoa, by the teachers?
Yes, and in some instances we had teachers who were members of the far right group, which was in existence then, the National Front.
National Front.
And this was something which was acceptable. Nobody within authority raised any objections.
Was this in London?
Yes, it was in London. I don't need to name the school, but yes, it was in London, and the school was a multiracial school. We had large Caucasian, Black, Asian population within the school. So it was diverse. But it was understood, though, that the dominant culture within the school would be the white culture, and that all other cultures within the school were either irrelevant or secondary. So calling black boys niggers, coons, wogs, monkeys, mango munchers, rapists, muggers, etc., was popular during those days. And we saw it, in not only within education, but we saw it within the mass media, where black men were demonized for being muggers, as if the whole mugging solution was down to incarcerating all young black men, whereas the truth of the matter was that the majority of muggers were white. But yet still you demonize one group of individuals based upon the colour of their skin.
Assumptions are easy to make. However, the question is it correct that someone will behave in a particular way or will have a particular ideology solely due to the colour of their skin? A study conducted by Ben Bowling and Coretta Phillips at the London School of Economics and Political Science notes that we have reached the view that although the links are complex, racially prejudiced attitudes do affect the way in which people behave.
So, I recall, growing up in England, walking the streets as a teenage boy would do with his friends, and we would have to run from gangs of men in cars who were out nigger hunting. And the whole idea was to grab a black person, a black male, and humiliate him, strip him naked, and beat him. So it was terrible here as a black man. I remember my mother used to say to me, when you're on the bus, never sit next to a white woman. Now, in no way, shape or form was my mother racist. In no way, shape or form do I have time for racism, whether it's racism of black people towards others or of racism towards black people. But because during that period of time, many young black men were accused of certain unwarranted advances towards white women, my mother told me, don't sit next to a white woman when you're on a bus, okay? Don't be at a bus stop by yourself with a white woman. Don't be in a room by yourself with a white woman. Why? Not because she's racist, not because she thinks all white women are unstable and will accuse all black men of trying to molest them, but it was because of the long history of black men being accused of being this type of beast that she wanted to protect me. Mm-hmm. Okay? And one of the popular images of the black man within the media during that time was of the black sexual menace. And it's still present today.
Stereotypes have a huge role to play in this. If you see someone with brown skin, i.e. Indo-Pac, like me, they're automatically fitted into the assumed role of a doctor, an engineer, a corner shop owner, or a taxi driver. Statistically, it can be argued that there's truth in that statement. However, is this due to the colour of one's skin? Or is it more likely that society has siphoned particular groups towards particular roles? Simon Clarke in Culture and Identity notes that often when we meet a stranger, we make assumptions about the nature of the stranger and attribute to her or him what Goffman calls a virtual social identity. Stigma is based on a discrepancy between actual and virtual social identity, an attribute that we perceive as a shortcoming. In the extreme, a person who is quite thoroughly bad or dangerous or weak leads us to discredit and stigmatize an individual. So, to an extent, one's own identity is defined by the social expectations that others have of that individual. And often these expectations are shaped through a person's race or cultural background. If a person is led to believe that their potential is limited by their race or culture, then they might grow up thinking that they cannot reach the heights which in fact Allah has put within their grasp, because such people have grown up being led to believe that brown people can only be, for example, dentists or newsagent owners. Now, there's nothing wrong with such roles in themselves, but it's the idea that we are limited in our capability due to being brown, white, red, black or yellow, which must be eradicated. Perhaps more frightening than the stereotypes associated with the brown race, and far more demeaning, are the stereotypes associated with black people. Crime statistics in the UK indicate that black people are suspected of crime by police much more than any other race. The study conducted by Ben Bowling and Coretta Phillips also observed that stereotypes of black people have been more consistent in that they are thought to be more prone to violent crime and drug abuse, to be incomprehensible, suspicious, hard to handle, naturally excitable, aggressive, lacking brain power, troublesome and tooled up. These findings have not been restricted to constables, but have been found throughout the ranks. Now, if you were a black child growing up and the images of black people as criminals was being constantly thrusted in your face by mainstream media and general prejudicial treatment, your aspirations as a black youth would be all the more stunted and misguided. Black youths are stopped and searched by police more often than any other racial group. The argument here is that if you're called a monster long enough, wouldn't you become one? It is vital that regardless of what we see, we do not bear the prejudices that lead to a generalization of all people of a particular race.
But these narratives are usually forgotten. We've entered the age of enlightenment, supposedly, within Great Britain, where race doesn't matter. We're supposedly post-racial. Well, we only had the Stephen Lawrence affair quite recently. We only had the example of a black paratrooper, member of Her Majesty's Armed Forces, being stripped naked in a police station, suffocated on the floor while a group of policemen stood around him making monkey noises, 2 or 3 years ago.
When we search in Islamic history for a black person, the lone figure we arrive at is Hazrat Bilal, the loyal companion of the Holy Prophet, who was the first man to ever deliver the adhan, or the call to prayer. It might not be racist to assume that black people often have strong voices, and Bilal's position as the mu'adhin was Allah's appreciation of this individual's ability. However, not all black people have a great voice, trust me. So is this another stereotype within the framework of Islamic history which determines the roles that black people have within the religion? And if not, then what other black people exist within Islam? Of the 124,000 prophets that Allah sent to mankind, He sent them to every race, culture and nation. To the Arabs, Allah sent Arab prophets. To the Chinese, Allah sent Chinese prophets. To the Caucasians, Allah sent Caucasian prophets. So it cannot be doubted that prophets and successors of every race were sent to the planet Earth. Among the greatest and most conclusive personalities to have been sent to mankind are the 12 holy Imams, who are the successors of the prophets and the bearers of the message which has been spread and taught by all prophets throughout history. But who were the 12 Imams? Why are these individuals, especially the final 6, so oppressed and shrouded in mystery?
The 12th Imam's mother, alayhi salam, she was a Roman princess, right?
Well, if you take the inaccurate popularist approach to the 12th Imam's mother, alayhim as-salam, then yeah, she was a Roman princess, and most probably the individual will also say that she was from actual Rome itself, in Italy. Whereas this is inaccurate. The most accurate reports is that the Blessed Mother of the 12th Imam, peace and blessings be upon both of them. She was a slave woman, and she was from Nuba or Nubia, which is in Sudan. Okay, one of the issues which is attendant with her true origin is the color of her skin. And we have the reality that as Christianity and Judaism have been whitewashed by particular individuals, so individuals attempt to whitewash Islam. When we look at the popular depictions of the 12th Imam, alayhi salam, they are all white. Okay, that may reflect the background of the drawer, but when from the 6th Imam onwards, the 6th Imam's mother being African, and all the mothers subsequently from the 6th Imam alayhi salam onwards, all their mothers being African, how can we say that that is an accurate portrayal?
Every mother of the Imams from the 6th Imam onwards had an African mother. One might say that it does not matter which race these individuals were. However, is it not a point of interest? And even if it's not important, why is such a profound thing never discussed or even mentioned? Why have we never even heard of such a thing?
And these things have to be said. So, let's say a man who has Arab and Iranian blood marries an African woman. They have a child. That child happens to be a boy. That boy, in turn, marries an African woman. They have a child. That boy, in turn, marries an African woman. That boy, in turn, marries an African woman. If that isn't black, then what is?
That's really black.
So somebody said, well, no, it's not black as you understand it. It's not black as we have it now today. This was in the chat room. And I said, well, Musibata, what do you mean it's not black as we understand it? What is being said is that we have an objection to individuals saying that the Imam is African, although his forefathers are Iranian as well as Semite Arab.
Scholars who are Sayyid can be identified by the black amamas or turbans that they wear, while scholars who are not of that lineage usually wear white turbans. While we see Sayyids from Asia and the Middle East, why are there none visibly of black descent?
If you go to Africa, you will see millions in Senegal, in Mali, in Gambia, in Ghana, in Nigeria, in Togo, in Mozambique, in many countries. Awladul Sadat are in abundance. This is the barakah which Allah Azza wa Jal has given them. And they wear the green turban. And they can trace their lineage back to Rasul al-A'zam. However, we also have Awladul Sadat in other regions outside of Africa who we would say are black. And these individuals, they're invisible in places like the Middle East, let's say. I know of instances where I have friends who are Awladul Sadat, from Africa, who have worn the black amama in particular places and been advised in the most strongest sense, take it off. You're not allowed to wear it. Or prove that you are a Musawi Sayyid. Whereas, how many other people are asked who come from an Indian subcontinent or an Arab or an Iranian background? How many of them are asked, prove that you are from the Awlad al-Sadat? We have the incident of the 7th Imam, alayhi salam, Imam Musa al-Qadhim, alayhi salam, where his imamate was doubted by a group of individuals. Some say even his uncles doubted his imamate. But nevertheless, one of the reports is that the doubt came because of the colour of his skin, that his colour of skin was too dark. Now, let's understand the vernacular of the time. In Arabic, we use the term abid, abd, abid, using it in the present would translate as nigger. People would say, no, it translates as slave. It's not meant in that sense. The context, look at the context, okay? The Imam alayhi salam has gone to the hammam. And
what's hammam?
Place of hot water, like where people take bath and shower.
Okay.
And he walks in, and one individual who is in the hammam before him mistakes him for, or applies his own thinking on him and says to him, "Bring me water," pointing at the Imam alayhi salam. So the Imam alayhi salam dutifully goes and gets the water, brings it to the individual. Somebody says to him, "Do you not know who that is?" Whispers to him, "Do you not know who that is?"
What, the man?
Yes. That is the son of Rasulullah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Qul ta'alaw nad'u abna'ana. Okay? This is the son of Rasulullah. So the man shakes and he comes to the Imam alayhi salam and he says, "Please forgive me, I didn't know who you were." And the Imam alayhi salam says, "There's nothing to forgive. There's nothing to forgive. Khidma alayya, your service is on me." There are other instances where the Imam alayhi salam is, we're told he's riding, and one of the practices of the Imam alayhi salam was he would cover his face. And somebody said in the vernacular of that time, "Black such and such." And the Imam alayhi salam stopped and took off his face covering. And they say that his face was shining like the moon. He said, "Yes, my face is black, but your heart is blacker." So there are a number of instances and more.
Which Imam was that?
This is the 8th Imam, alayhi salam, where the Imams, peace be upon them, have been racially abused by unenlightened individuals. But look at the beauty now. These individuals are in the minority. The Shia of the Imams, regardless of what colour they are willing to die for the truth which the Imam alayhi salam represents. The Imam alayhi salam does not represent colour of skin. The Imam alayhi salam is an ayah of Allah Azza wa Jal on earth. We call him Baqiyatullah, the remnants of Allah Azza wa Jal's blessings on earth. That's the reality of the Imam. This is what our unenlightened Muslim brothers and sisters have failed to grasp. So when they bring their racial prejudices, into the mix, they bring something which the Shia madhab totally rejects and says an individual is chosen not because of the colour of their skin, but because of their faithfulness to Allah Azza wa Jal.
Allah says in the Quran, "We created nations and tribes so that you may know each other." Allah desires for us to acknowledge and celebrate our differences, because without variety, the world truly would be a grey and dull colour. I, for one, am thankful that I belong to the greatest and most beautiful race, the human race. The question is, are you?